folks, Bruce here from 4LowLife, and welcome to episode 7 of electrical troubleshooting. Today I have a problem with one of my turn signals, and we're going to go through and find out where the problem is and fix it. So if you want to see how to diagnose some electrical issues on your truck, stick around. So as you can see right now, I have my 4-ways on, and my right turn signal is not turning on. I can't tell that from inside the truck because my flasher rate stays the same. So I've seen that I have this bulb out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the circuit in half. I'm going to start in the middle. I don't know if it's the bulb. I doubt it's the bulb because it's LED, but I'm going to take the bulb out, see if my test light lights up. If my test light lights up, then I'm going to figure it's the bulb. If my test light doesn't light up, I'll slowly work backwards until I find where the problem is occurring. So let me pop this light out. I'll be back in a second. Okay, now actually what I should mention before I pull the bulb, before I pull the light assembly out is the reason I have this on my 4-ways is because I wanted to make sure that it's not the signal switch. Now, I know as a common part of the circuit, the turn signal switch and the 4-ways use the same flasher circuitry. So this light is not working whether it's set to turn signal or hazard, so I can pretty much rule out the turn signal switch in the steering column. And the fact that the rear light is working helps me rule that out as well. So I am taking an assumption at this point that it's something in the front half of the truck because the wiring going to the back and the function at the back is working. So next up, I'm going to remove this bulb, socket, housing, something, and see what I get on the back of that. All right, so using my test light, simple replacement for the bulb, I'm going to make sure that this isn't all working if I take the bulb out and replace it with something else. So out comes the bulb, and all I need to do at this point is contact my test light from the outside to the center. See if I can clip that on there. So that's on the outside, that's on the center, and my test light's not flashing, so I'm saying at this point it's not likely the bulb. So I've now narrowed it down to something on the front of the truck because the back is working, this side of the truck because that side is working, and now it's not the bulb, it's between the bulb and somewhere in the truck. So next I'm going to start going back. I'm going to disconnect it back here because I happen to have an extra light connection, and I'm going to see if I have power to flash my test light up here. Okay, so because this plug is very small pins and obviously my test light clip is large, what I've done is I've clipped a small screwdriver onto my ground so I can insert that into the plug on one side, hopefully. So I've got my screwdriver extension, stick that in one side, and I'm going to take the pin from my test light and stick it in the other side. Now if the truck wiring is working, my test light should flash, and it does. So now I know that my wiring all the way up to this plug is working properly, which means within a couple minutes I've narrowed it down to a problem on this harness extension. So there's a plug there, there's a socket, could be a bad wire, could be a connection, but I know that everything up to the front of my truck is working, and I've now narrowed it down to this. Very quickly, I know where the problem is. So for the next part of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my voltmeter, my digital voltmeter, set on ohms with the tone. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for continuity, which is a good path with low resistance from one end of this wire harness to the other. So all I've done is I've pushed the wire for the center pin through. I'm going to grab my meter and hold it on that pin. And then I'm going to probe the 2 pins on here. I'm not even going to look at colors. I know it's green and green, but I will check both. So I have no continuity to the white-black wire. And there I have a tone. So my green wire, from the pin that contacts the bulb, that little part there, back to the plug is good. So I can rule that out now. So the next thing is the outside of the socket. So I just tested the center pin. I'm going to test the outside. Now I know that should be connected to the black-white wire because the center is connected to green. It's not tripping a breaker or blowing a fuse, so it shouldn't be connected to the green as well, but we'll see. We'll check both. So I'm just holding this in the outside, holding it up against the outside of the connector there, and I should get a tone on the black-white wire, not the green. So nothing on green, and I get nothing on black-white. So that means I've narrowed it down further. I know the problem is something on the black-white wire. I don't know where it is yet. It could be a broken wire, it could be a bad connection in the pin here, and it could be a bad connection to the socket here. Now, looking at this, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a big crack down the side. That's going to point me pretty suspect in the direction that that's where the problem lies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at how this black-white wire goes in there. Goes through a little grommet. If I pull that out, And that's exactly where the crack is. This wire seems to do a 180 here and go back down beside the bulb socket. So I'm going to suspect, because I've taken the other one apart, that this is just pressed in here. This is a quickly made piece. They take the plastic, they take the wire, they loop it around, they shove the socket in, it makes contact with the outside. Over time, with it cracking, it's probably going to get some salt water in there. I do live where there's salt water in the winter, and all the roads, it's horrible. So chances are the other end of this wire is corroded and it's not making good contact with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this. I'm going to rip that wire out. I'm not going to rely on a friction connection. I'm actually going to solder it to this outside socket here. So I'm going to pop that apart. I'll show you what I've done afterwards. Okay, so I found the problem where the wire wasn't connected and it was just shoved in beside the socket. Actually, when I pulled the wire, it just broke off and came out. So it was pretty corroded inside the wiring. I stripped a little bit of wire off, got a new clean section of wire with no corrosion on it. And what I've done is I've soldered it to the bulb socket right there. So it's just soldered to the outside now. Going to be a much better connection. Before I put it all back together and make the assumption that what I did was right, I'm going to check it. So I know the center pin was working before. So again, with my meter on ohms and tone, I'm going to check the outside pin. I have a tone now, and I'm getting just over 0 for ohms, like 1, 2, flashing between 1 and 2. That's a good connection. So again, I'm just checking from the outside of the socket to the pin in the plug, and it's good. And just for fun, I'll check the center pin as well. A little more difficult. Check that one. Pop it out so I can hold it on the pin. Should be good on green. Good on green. So now this piece is working. It should all work when I put it back together. Okay, moment of truth here. This flasher system's been going the whole time I've been repairing this. I'm going to take my LED bulb, put it back in the socket, and I'm going to take my plug and hook it back, and hopefully everything starts flashing. I get it the right way around. There we go. So, hazard signals flashing, chances are turn signal's going to work again. I'm going to throw this back together, do a double check, and that should be good. Quick, simple. I broke the system into multiple parts. I took out the common points. I checked for where it worked and where it didn't, kept breaking it into smaller and smaller pieces of the circuit. I knew the bulb wasn't the problem because I replaced the bulb with my test light. I knew that I had power at this plug. It's got to be something in between. Simple check with an ohm meter, found a bad connection, done. Literally has taken me maybe 15-20 minutes to go all the way through this, and other than putting it back together, I'm pretty much done. Well folks, I hope that helped somebody see how easy it can be to troubleshoot. Didn't really use any expensive tools. Screwdriver to get the light out, test light to find where the voltage was stopping, and my multimeter on tone, which pretty much any digital multimeter will do. Cheap $10 meter will do it. Found the problem, fixed it with a soldering iron, back in business, out of pocket cost, $0, and it's up and working again. So I will probably buy some new bulb sockets to replace those ones because they are cracked, and it is in fact both sides that are cracked. But back up and running for now, zero cost, not very much time, worth it. So if learning electrical troubleshooting is something that you are hoping to get into more, stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell so you get a notification when I release a new video. If you enjoy this type of content, you can support me on Patreon. I don't expect it. I don't have any patrons at this point, but here you go. Here's some useful information. Stay tuned, subscribe. Thanks.